So his bit was he just got up and he didn't know anything. So he just said it all in English, but
I knew that was coming.
in a French accent, right? In a French accent. So he was like, hello, my name is Mark. I live in Manchester.
This is the Extra 10% Podcast, helping you get paid tomorrow for what you do today. Invite John Holowaty and Mark Hudson to join you at the breakfast table, ride with you to work, or just randomly stumble across them in the afternoon. Let's get the extra 10% out of your day.
It's on. We're in.
We're back.
We're in the chat room. Have you fashioned that mug yourself? Looks like you've made it out of clay.
Oh, it's good. It's a good mug. I'll show you what it says.
You mug.
I have two of these. There you go. Can you see it?
Just about what it say. Dreams are only dreams.
You have to split this.
So you wake up, and then it's a bit shiny on that bit, and make.
You wake up and smell the coffee. No, until you wake up and make them real.
Right. So that's actually a pretty good segue into today's podcast. But first and foremost, if anyone, I guess, is listening to this, that needs to follow us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube so they can see the mug. And I don't mean me or John. I mean the actual coffee mug.
Have you got the two mugs on the screen at the same time on this recording?
I actually do, yeah. Yeah. I've got the two mugs side by side.
Today's thing, we were chatting before, like what we were going to go through, because sometimes we have a plan for these podcasts and sometimes we don't. We just kind of go through what's going on in our lives. So yeah, first of all, where are we up to in terms of subscribers? Have we hit the 100 mark?
I don't think we have. No, I think we're like 80 or something like that.
Okay, so we're creeping towards it.
Absolutely. Once we hit that 100, we are releasing the editions, which, like I say, I always go to like say what it is, and then I feel bad. And but basically, we can't say anything. But once we hit 100 subscribers, it gets released. Basically, so the exciting thing. So that's good. So I think by this time next week we'll have that. We're basically getting 20 a week, which is pretty cool. So that's that. So subscribe to us on YouTube, and you can see our beautiful faces, John's beautiful new mug, yeah. So what have you been up to this week, man?
Same old.
Whoa, hold on. Don't move the screen. I mean, moving the screen is like, it's...
You're not allowed to do that in the podcast world.
I was going to say, it's almost like, well, hold on. Like, it's not the same podcast now. This is the extra 12%.
Yeah, it's grown in height. So, no, I've had a good week, a really good week, really productive. I've started Spanish lessons.
Right. Like, no joke, you started Spanish lessons.
Yeah. I've got a Spanish teacher now who is hilarious. It's very funny, actually, because I'm just like very mischievous during the lessons. And like I try and make up my own sentences with the words that she's taught me. So can't really go into it because you have to be there. But I mean, I'm certainly not opening up my Spanish lessons for people to jump on and listen to me. And do you know what's funny? It's been amazing in terms of like learning something new, like brand new, because I know 5 Spanish words, if that. So it's like you're learning something brand new, and it really evokes memories of the past. Because I just messed about in languages at school. I thought, what am I going to learn? What do I need French for? I'm not gonna live there. What's the point? I don't need to learn German. Like I'm never gonna need these languages. That was my kind of short-sightedness as a teenager. So I just pratted around in school. I'll never forget my my French writing exam. We had to stand up in front of the class and write where we live. I think I've told this story before, but it always makes me laugh. And there was a couple of us that just messed about. Anyway, one guy stood up and he had to explain who he was and where he lived. So his bit was he just got up and he didn't know anything. So he just said it all in English.
I knew that was coming.
In a French accent, right? In a French accent. So he was like, hello, my name is Mark. I live in Manchester. Right. So So I'm in hysterics at the back of the class, and I'm going, well, I'm next. I don't know how to write this stuff down. So the teacher goes, John, can you please go up to the whiteboard and write down, I'm John. I live in Bolton, and J Abita is I live, right? So I couldn't write it, so I just put J, and then I wrote Ibiza. I wrote J Ibiza Bolton as the word, and
it sounds like a DJ. That.
Yeah, exactly. So I always kind of like learning new skills and stuff. It's crazy because we bring people into our business and they're brand new, and what's second nature to you sometimes. You think everybody else is just going to pick it up straight away, but this is like evoked memories of the past of, I was rubbish. I got an F in my GCSEs in French. I can't even remember what I got in German, but it was probably either worse or just better. And, then what you do is you start telling yourself that you're rubbish. So that's what I've been doing. I've started telling myself that I'm no good at languages when there is no evidence of that at all, because I didn't try at school. So it's like saying I'm rubbish at basketball. Well, the truth is I've never really played basketball. So how can I say I'm rubbish? So this is what human beings do all the time. We kind of go back to our childhood and things that we've done in the past and say, oh, I'm rubbish at this, I'm rubbish at that. And the truth is we're not. So I'm having to almost train myself again how to think positively, to learn a new skill. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to rewind my brain to say, actually, I'm amazing at languages. I'm really good at learning stuff. I'm picking it up really, really quickly. And one other thing that I did, and one thing that I learned years ago from Tony Robbins was, you can learn so much more quicker and faster. Success loves speed, just by compounding as much of the information as you can. So rather than doing one lesson a week, I'm doing one lesson a day. I'm like, I want to learn this language as fast as I can, as quick as I can. And the more I learn it, the quicker I do it, the quicker I'll get better at it, which means the more I'll learn it. Just kind of grows your belief in stuff. So
you might take it into other areas then as well. So like, I think learning new things is not something we do all the time. Like you say, when you're at school, you learn loads in a short period of time because every day's learning because you're going to school. Whereas when you get into a job or when you get into like a routine, I suppose, you don't really set time aside like to do what you're doing now. So it is almost scary, and it's painful to kind of, if you've not hit a brick wall like that before, which is like, wow, yeah, I genuinely am like starting right at the beginning of this. It's uncomfortable. Like that's an uncomfortable position to be in because we've not really had it, like you say, since school.
Yeah, totally. It's and I was saying something in like how I was doing the stuff, trying to create these sentences, and it's like I was saying, I is John, like I'm the Spanish Ali G, right? so yeah, it's crazy, like learning something from scratch. But then the other flip side of that is the difference in anything, in any learning, is if you want to make it happen, you will make it happen, and if you don't, you will make an excuse. And I really want to learn Spanish. Our company is launching in Mexico, and I'd love to be able to speak that language. And my vision for it is, it's all, we talked about vision the other week, and my vision is to be able to do my business presentation in Spanish in front of the whole room and do the exact same thing that I do in English with the same gags and the same kind of flow of story, but do it completely in Spanish. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's just, and that's my vision for it. And then being able to sit in, by the beach and have conversations and build my team in a new language. It's kind of, I guess it's like the Football Manager. I've won the Premiership in England. Now I want to go and try and win the Liga.
But do you not think there's a respect element to it as well? So like, I always feel a bit embarrassed going to other people's countries and not being able to like, just have general chit chat, because let's face it, a lot of people that come to the UK, they have like everyone has at least a basic grasp of English. All right, it might not be the most articulate. In fact, some people can speak better English than I that are like from foreign countries. But I feel like one of the things we as English have been quite bad at and become a bit lazy on is that we don't take the time to learn other languages. but a lot of, people sort of learn our language. And so I feel like there's a respect element. So like when you go to somewhere is Spanish speaking country in the future, to give a seminar or a talk, you're almost respecting their culture by saying, yeah, I'm here in your land, if you will. Let me kind of adhere to that sort of thing. So I think
yeah,
it's cool.
totally. And I think it's a British mentality that, because we had the British Empire, right? So it's kind of
there's an element of that, sure.
that, we don't need to learn another language because we're the British and we run the world and well, we used to, we don't anymore. But, that's the mentality. And the British thing is, if I don't understand it, I'll just speak a bit louder.
A bit louder, yeah.
Then I'll do it in a Spanish or French accent. So
yeah.
But yeah, it's as well. It's like this thing has opened up a new respect for my colleagues in my business, and we've got so many guys that are from Switzerland, Germany, French. I know we've got listeners to our podcast from those countries, from Spain, that come to England and they do their whole presentation in English. And I'm like, wow, me learning this now, it's like, what an amazing achievement from those guys. So massive respect for people that learn languages. I think and Jim Rohn talks about it in his, I think, I can't remember which audio book it is, but I think it's something about you can learn a new language if you want to, like teach kids different languages.
Yeah, they can learn like 6 or 7 at once.
Yeah, because they're so receptive to it. So that's been a good thing for me, and I'll keep you posted. Maybe one day I'll be able to do the podcast in Spanish. But
I won't be able to understand it though.
No,
the
exactly.
thing as well is there was a really cool. I remember a few years ago, Mark Zuckerberg was in China. I guess talking about Facebook and things like that. And the interviewer asked him a question. And I think the interviewer was speaking in Chinese, but I think it was expected then that he would listen to the translation, speak it in English, and then the audience, I guess it'd be translated to them. And as a massive shock to everyone is the lady asked him the question and he then in fluent, Mandarin, I guess it was. I think there's a number of Chinese dialects. He then just answered the question in Mandarin, and everyone in the crowd was like, it was like really cool. And I think his wife is Chinese, so he'd obviously been learning it, and he just hadn't ever let the public know or anything like that. And then he just got on stage, and just like all the other interviews he'd done, it was just expected he was going to speak in English and stuff, and he just started talking in Mandarin, and it was like, obviously I don't know how good it was or not, like fluency wise, but
they were blown away.
Yeah, it's good. Going back to the time of it, like you were saying then, if you want to learn something, you'll make time. Think about someone like Mark Zuckerberg. If you were ever not going to have time, you would be the person running Facebook. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so if he's got time to then learn another language, then almost what's everyone else's excuse? What are our excuses, I guess?
Well, Gareth Bale went to play for Real Madrid and he's been out there for 4 years or whatever. And I don't know if he's learned Spanish now, but a lot of the complaints in the press were that he's not even made the effort to learn the language. And that's despite him scoring one of the best overhead kicks ever in football.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
He still isn't massively loved by the Madrid fans. And that's one of the reasons. So it's definitely worth doing if that's just one of my, do you know what's funny? Because we talk about goals and stuff and achieving things. I've had that on my vision board to learn Spanish for probably 3 years. I probably mentioned it on the very first podcast that we did in season 1 where, 2015, 2016, when we brought this out. And I have done absolutely nothing with it for 2 years, 3 years or whatever it is. So guess what? I can't speak Spanish. So you can have the best intentions and the best goals written down and do absolutely nothing with it. And if you don't practice, you will never get better. And it's just a reminder that repetition is the mother of all learning, having your goals down, writing them down, putting them in there. And, last week I talked about my morning rituals. I've now added number 7 to my 6 of the best. So now it's 7 of the best. Do my Spanish homework. So I do that in the morning before I open my phone open. It's interesting, I'm actively participating in wanting to do the homework because I'm so hungry to learn the language. So there's another good video just on that Mandarin one. It's I saw it the other week. A guy can speak some Chinese dialect fluent, and he goes into a Chinese takeaway and he just starts speaking, and they film it all. It's had something like 10 million views, and he just starts speaking. He just looks like some guy from New York, just a typical American bloke. And he goes in and he just starts ordering all this food and starts chatting to all the staff, and he speaks the exact dialect of where they're from.
From there. I've seen that. I follow that guy on YouTube, as in, he's done loads of videos, exactly that same thing of like, I think he starts in English, doesn't he? So he'll say, oh, like, what do you recommend or something? And then, the lady or guy behind the counter will point, and then he just like goes, oh, and is this, and this? But he does that in their dialects, and they're like, what the hell? Like,
they couldn't believe it. So we've seen the same one. The other thing I've done this week, which is pretty cool, is I've ordered an assault bike. So I am famous for buying bikes and not using them. So I've just had a picture from my mum. I bought a bike from a good friend of mine years ago, and I had visions of riding it every day. It's a really nice mountain bike, and I think I rode it once. And it's been in my mum and dad's garage for years. And my dad has actually my mum just sent me a picture of my dad riding the bike. He started using it now, which is good. And then I told you the other week about the bike I bought in Dubai, where I rode it from the sports store home, and I've given it away now. I've lent it to my friends over there, so they're using it. So, but two bikes that I'm not using. This is an assault bike, so it can't actually go anywhere. It's a CrossFit. It's used in CrossFit training, but obviously it's used in other things. But for those of you that don't know what they are, it's a horrific piece of gym equipment, and it's got arms on it. So when you pedal, you get your arms going like that, and you pedal your legs really fast. It's just, you can have an incredible workout on it in 20 minutes. Like, you just do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. It's a lung buster. It's a leg burner. You can mix it up with your different workouts and stuff, and they're really expensive. Anyway,
is that one of those? Is it a Peloton? Is that what it's called?
Called an assault bike, an air bike. So it's got like a big circle at the front of it with the like, not propellers, but the wheel in there.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the same way a rowing machine would be, but a bike.
Right.
So
okay.
That kind of thing, a massive wheel in the front. And the workouts you get from it are insane. I love to hate this machine, but it's one of them. It's so good for your cardiovascular system. And
I just imagine you going like so hard on it that it like comes off the stand and like just.
Yeah, no, it's mad. It is mad. Once you get, I did a workout with two other guys. I got blagged into doing this competition, this team competition a few years ago. And one of the challenges in the workout was there's three of us, as many calories you can do in 7 minutes on the assault bike, right? There's no way that you could do it on your own. So it's a team thing. So we devised this plan. What we're going to do is sprint. We'll do 40 seconds, 40 seconds, 40 seconds, 40 seconds. And then whoever's on last for the last minute, they just go hell for leather. So these guys jumping on, jumping off, and they were all taller than me. So it was a nightmare for me to try and get onto the seat. But the worst thing about it was the pedals are spinning like really, really fast while you're trying to jump on. It's like a scene from James Bond or Mission Impossible. My legs got smashed so many times. And then, as I thought would happen, I was the last person on with like 45 seconds to go. We're all dying on this. Like, the two guys are dying at the side of me. They're like, oh my God, I can't breathe. Just keep going, John. Just keep going. Patting me on the back. My legs, I swear to you, I've never felt pain like it at the end of that workout. It was unreal. But so I bought one of these for the house in England. And when I get back there, I now have zero excuses not to at least. One of my things is do a minimum 20-minute workout per day. So that's just perfect for me to use. So those are two good things for this week, and a bit of lessons, learnings within those decisions.
Yeah,
how about you, man?
That's good. I mean, yeah, similar, like same old, I guess, but just been more and more focused on, I guess, Let's One and what we're trying to create and different things like that. And what I sort of realized is that if you think of it being like everything being processes and things like that, what I've realized is that we're very good at the product side, and where we've kind of lacked is the customer service side, or rather like how we onboard clients and things like that. So I've been spending basically the last 2 weeks really looking at all the processes of how do we bring somebody on brand new and then get them to the point where we're creating the website. Because like I say, it's one thing to deliver a product to somebody, but it's another thing like the way you do it, like the way you get that, you know, to the door. For example, like Amazon, they do next day delivery. You're still getting the same product, but like the way it's delivered to you in that instance is very quickly. That's the thing that's like exciting about it. So yeah, that's what I've been focused on.
Pay a premium for that, right? They pay a premium for Amazon next day delivery.
Yeah, but it's minimum. It's like £4 a month or something like that, and you get all the movies and the music and stuff included in that. So it's like and do you know what, that idea Amazon Prime it came up with by an intern. So someone who was at the company just very temporarily as like a young intern, maybe like 18 years old, pitched that idea, and then it became the like most successful thing. I remember Jeff Bezos, who's the CEO of Amazon, like he like explains this like in more detail than I will, of course. But yeah, and what he was sort of saying is that the best idea always wins. Doesn't matter where it comes from. If somebody comes up with a great idea and they genuinely are the cleaner, let's say, it does not matter. If they've got the best idea, let's use it. And it sort of gets rid of the bureaucracy of like corporate institutions.
Yeah, the ego for sure.
Yeah, so that's cool. So this week, another thing that's like I've been taking really, really serious, and you probably noticed I've got this like ring on, and like so I've been doing so much, like really, the point of this podcast, like we've sort of said right at the beginning, is kind of, well, maybe we didn't say actually, but it's like becoming like very comfortable in your surroundings and your day to day, that you don't necessarily progress because you're just very comfortable in what it is you're doing. And I felt like I've been like that the last 18 months for sure. Is like that, you know, been just sort of not floating or drifting, because I still had like goals in mind, but compared to being so determined to achieve stuff, I definitely have been like floating and drifting. So one of the things that I've been doing is like, I found that a lot of I want to be more focused, right? That was my outcome, right? And so there's a few people I follow on YouTube anyway that are kind of a similar type of companies, and I sort of spoke about this last week. But one of the things that I was mentioning last week is that sleep is like so key. And so I basically found this ring, and what it does is you wear it 24/7, 365, and it's monitoring your like heart rate all the time. It's even monitoring like the fluctuations in the beating of your heart. So your heart's not supposed to beat like perfectly, like once a second or anything like that. It's supposed to kind of be like slightly varied. Anyway, what this ring does, say again? Yeah, it's supposed to be more like an Ibiza beat. But basically, this ring like monitors everything about you, like your activity and things like that, really accurately, because it's on your finger, and that's where I think a lot of your like nerve endings are and stuff, and like your capillaries or whatever. So anyway, it links to an app, cool. And what I've basically been doing is going back to sort of being sort of focused, is like plotting this in a spreadsheet. And I feel like I touched on this a couple of weeks ago, but in essence, what it does is you put in everything from how long you've slept for, all the data this ring like spits out, and you then also correlate that with like how productive your day's been. You know, have you been focused? Have you achieved the things you wanted to achieve? And you like rate them on percentage ratings of like, yeah, how focused were you today, et cetera, et cetera. And then over a month, over a year, over a decade, you can sort of, this graph is like plotted out that correlates to like, if you ate well and you slept well, then you were more focused that day. And so that's really what I've been sort of utilizing, and coupling that with routines as well, is that my focus levels these last 2 weeks have just like exponentially skyrocketed. And like, I don't know, it's like I feel like I did mention
that ring is, whether it works or not, like I love things like this. It's a constant reminder that to stay focused, like just by wearing that ring. It's almost like when, you know, people wear watches, and if they have different watches for different scenarios. So it's like, right, I put this watch on now, that means I'm in work mode. Now,
right, yeah.
And put that watch on, it means I'm in chill mode. I mean, I've not worn my watch since lockdown because time is irrelevant, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
great way. It's almost like there's a great podcast with Guy Ritchie and Joe Rogan, and he talks a lot. Guy Ritchie turns up to the podcast in this suit. Yeah, and he says, as soon as I put this suit on, this is like my persona of who I am when I'm not at home. And
it's like your back cape.
Yeah, it's like having that ring there, maybe just as I know it's spitting out all this information and giving you tools and info, but actually just as soon as that ring goes on, it's like, right, this is my focus ring. This is like where this is where I get busy and stuff. So that's cool. I love it. So I want to ask you a question then, because this podcast is about falling back in love with hunger, falling back in love with what you want. But at the same time, we don't want to put out a message to people, or I don't want you to almost feel guilty for maybe dropping down into third gear for a couple of years of your life. Because I've done the same thing. Halfway through 2018, I had a really productive start to 2018. The first 4 months were incredible. And then I would say July, maybe a bit longer, but July, August, I didn't know it at the time, but there was just so many distractions with me moving out to the UAE, bringing my business over there, all that kind of stuff. I definitely look back and can almost see where I shifted gears back down into third gear. And I wouldn't say I was at second gear, but I was definitely in third gear for a couple of years. So I couldn't honestly look back and go, nah, John, you were so lazy, you did absolutely nothing there. I still showed up, I was still busy, but I definitely wasn't in fifth gear. I wasn't in top gear, like flying at a real cruising altitude, like I am now. I would say I'm in fifth gear right now, totally focused. I'm at like, if to use a car analogy, I'm at 70 mile an hour, I'm in cruise control, going at a really good speed. I'm not going too fast where it's dangerous and I'm close to burnout. I'm at a perfect speed for where I want to be.
Yeah, and a maintainable one. Yeah.
But then I don't want to look back. I don't look back and go, well, that was a waste of time. I think it's all learning. So the question is, or the thought that I've kind of thought is, do you feel bad for the 2 years? Like, why do you think you dropped down into third gear? Do you feel, that's the first question. And then the second one is, do you feel bad about it? Do you have any regrets? And then I'll ask you the third question when you've answered them.
Yeah. So the first one was what? Why?
Why do you think that you dropped down into?
So I guess sometimes if you set your goals too near and then you achieve them, there almost isn't the next driving thing. And I think that's what, like, all my original goals, I guess when I started Let's One. So like, all my original goals were about like, okay, I want a company. I want to do this. I want to do this amount of revenue. I want this many clients. And like, I sort of achieved those things reasonably quick, like in the first year or so. Get an office, get a solid brand in place, etc. And then, so it became like too easy to maintain that level, and I became very comfortable, I suppose. So like you said, you don't realize you're taking your foot off the gas, but you're not putting your foot down on the gas. Like, you're not, you're just sort of staying constant. So I think the reason why, that I felt like, the last 18 months specifically, maybe even slightly longer, is like, because I guess I was working like a 9-to-5 job, earning a certain amount a month. And then I was able to get back to that level. So obviously I took a dip, like everyone, I guess, does when you start a new business. And then my goal then was like, just get back to how much I used to earn, if that makes sense. And then I didn't really have goals beyond that, I suppose, apart from really, really far off in the distance ones, right?
So there's nothing in the middle.
Nothing in the middle, yeah. So as soon as I achieved those goals, and I just, like I say, took my foot off the gas. And then what started to happen was, because I didn't have like, even just having a full, like a North Star anyway, I didn't really have a fully defined thing for the company. I had one for my personal life, but not necessarily for the company. Is like, if you haven't really got a focus on where the end goal is or whatever, like I had quite a blasé end goal for the company, which is, we just sell for 100 million. Like that was the goal. And it's like, but that doesn't mean anything. Like there's no like substance behind that. So now as a sort of a counteract, I suppose, is like going, yeah, what is it we actually want to achieve? Because the money side or the selling is like a byproduct of the thing you actually want to achieve. And so I've sort of really gone into that. So I think the reason why is that I just got comfortable, got to a point where my original goals had been ticked off and did not have then any next step goals, and didn't take the time to, and I guess I tried to convince myself that I had taken the time to reset new goals, but I hadn't got any new goals that I really was fully bought into or different things because, and the other thing as well is I felt a bit lost at that point. So once I ticked off those first set of goals, it was kind of like, what is the direction to head in now? Because I was very determined at first. I felt like, and even before Let's One started, between the ages of like 21 and 24, when I guess discovered personal development and stuff for the first time, my sort of progression rate was like super fast. So from knowing almost nothing about the fact you can set goals and blah, blah at 21, and then by 24 or even 23, I remember we had a conversation when we flew first class to New York and you were like, bloody hell, like at 23, like I wasn't doing this kind of a thing. And I remember at the time I'm thinking, yeah, this is great. Like I'm ahead of the game, et cetera, et cetera. But then from like 25 or whatever to 27, those kind of 2 years, I wouldn't say I've gone slower than what I should. I've gone slower than what I should, but I feel like I've just done average. And like, we always talk about this all the time, that average, that's just like the road to mediocrity basically. And it's like,
I think one thing with that is like great awareness is, sometimes getting off to a really good start or having momentum can actually trip you up later on down the line. So almost it's not achieving things too quickly, but not being aware of what you did, what you were doing to get them. And that's one thing. And then just going back to the car, when you drive sometimes it's really hard, unless you've got cruise control, to stay at 70 mile an hour. If you're on the motorway, it's actually really difficult, but you don't realize that you're slowing down, or you don't realize that you're going too fast. You've always got to keep tracking like, oh, I'm at 70, I'm at 70, I'm at 70. Sometimes when I was driving, I've not driven for a while, but I'd be driving my car and I'd be listening to music and whatever, and I'd actually have taken my foot off the gas and not realized that I was on the outside lane going 60 mile an hour, and everyone's flashing me behind saying, speed up, you idiot, right? So I'm driving like Mr. Magoo. And so I think we do that in life sometimes. We don't even realize that we're not going at the same speed as we originally were, and we almost naturally drop down a gear without even realizing it. And the thing that why I wanted to bring that up is, you've obviously had a lot of life changes. You've moved house, you've got within this period of sort of slowing down subconsciously. And the same thing with me, I slowed down subconsciously, and it was usually distractions within life. And I've seen that in other people where babies have come along, marriages have happened, divorces have happened, house moves. And it's like, no, I'm still working hard. But these other things have somehow subliminally slowed you down, which, all distractions are equal, all
absolutely,
diverse. And you don't really know it until you look back. So I think there's two key lessons there. Like, number one, hitting the success game, or what your perception of success was for you. And the same thing happened to me when I was personal training. I got to a level where I was training about 40. I was doing about 40 clients a week. I had 40 sessions a week, and I had really good money coming in. I was still living at home with my parents. I had cash in the bank, and subliminally, I took my foot off the gas. And I talked about this on a live that I did last week about I'd stopped filling the top of the funnel. So eventually, because I'd stopped doing the basics of any business, which is new customers, new relationships, over a period of time, I took my foot off the gas, and eventually clients got to the end of their client journey and didn't renew and didn't continue with their sessions. And then overnight, or over a 10-day period, I lost about 6 clients at the same time.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, I haven't got any new blood coming in. And then these negative thoughts start kicking in then. And you're like, oh my God, I'm a failure. This trainer's really busy. I'm not. Why have I done this? And that was when I read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, which is my life was about the best books that changed my life. And that was one of my books that I talk about, because in that moment, it was a realization that I'd stopped doing the basics to build a business, which is you need a constant flow of new customers. It's almost like if the shopping mall said, right, that's it now. We're not going to let any more people come in here. The ones that are in are just going to stay shopping. And then when they've bought their stuff, they'll leave. We're not going to bring any more people. Eventually the businesses would close down. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's where I was at. So, and the distractions caused me to get into a comfort zone of, rather than going, right, I've just trained a client. Now I've got a 2-hour gap to go and get some more clients. I would go, now I've got a 2-hour gap. I'm going to go and get a workout in. I'm going to have a sauna. I'm going to have a steam room and chill. Whereas the me at the hungry stage would have gone, right, I've just trained a client. I've got 2 hours to get another 2 people booked in for taster sessions so I can grow my client base. So I think that is the key really to wrap both of our scenarios together, is you've got to have a goal to go to in the middle of your vision. You need those stepping stones in place, and you need to be really clear on where you're at. So the next question was, do you feel guilty about it or not?
I would say, yeah, if I was being honest. So like,
do you feel disappointed in yourself?
Yeah, because like I say, because when I felt like I had such a great start in those early years, like up to like 24. It's like, I'd be lying if I said, yeah, where would I be if I had kept at that rate? And so, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like we always say that when's the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. When's the next time? It's today. And that's what kind of happened to me 2 weeks ago, is I looked at it, felt super guilty, because I was in like a bit of a cycle. So my cycle was this, right? Which was like, and we've kind of spoke about this before, but it'd be like, I would be the last 2 years, I'd be working what I considered to be like really hard. But because there was no focus, because there wasn't a goal to achieve, actually, I was just on a hamster wheel, right? I was just working hard, but not going anywhere. But I would get to the end of a week then and be like, yeah, I have worked hard. And I would like maybe crack a few beers or whatever. And then I'd wake up the next day and I'd be like, but there was no output. There was no like progression. And so then I was like, well, I shouldn't have had those beers last night. So then I'd feel guilty for drinking because I haven't got the progression that I thought I deserved last night when I was thinking about it. And so I was on that cycle. So what had happened is I'd like, maybe it wasn't every week, but let's say I'd build up over a month or a quarter of like working really hard. And then I'd have like a blowout. Maybe we'd catch up and we'd all go out for some drinks or, whatever. Or I'd just, be with family or something. And then the next day I'd feel like it was kind of like it'd build up like a bit of pressure. And then the sort of, I guess, going out and getting drunk or whatever would be the sort of releasing of that pressure. But what do you get if you release pressure out of like a balloon? You have a deflated balloon. And that's what I was like the next day. It was like a deflated balloon.
With alcohol, I mean.
It's the worst. Yeah.
Like if you'd have gone, right, I'm going to go and release the pressure by going for a hike in the mountains or go-karting or go and play, whatever.
Yeah, the downs wouldn't have been as bad.
You wouldn't have had you probably might not have even had a down, because I've noticed that with me when I've had, and I've still had periods over this non-alcohol time where I've been a little bit flat. Like last Saturday, I was completely exhausted. This Saturday, I'm really high energy. And I feel like, and that I don't know why that was. Like, it's still Saturday this week. It's still Saturday last week. But last weekend would have been definitely a time, if I'd have had alcohol in my life, where I'd have been, you know what, I'm going to crack a few beers. I'm going to put some tunes on. That would have been my escapism. That would have been my release. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'd have felt flat I would have felt even flatter and even more demotivated on the Saturday. Whereas I felt flat, I felt a little bit tired, and I'm kind of at peace now with feeling different emotions and not beating myself up if I'm tired because I've worked hard. But you almost look at it with a clearer view of why. Whereas the alcohol anxiety from the next day, or that kind of down, that beer fear, as we call it, amplifies everything and it makes you feel worse. But you know, I think there's a bit of guilt there, of course, but I almost want to say like the guilt can be a great lesson and it can be a super positive. So out of that period of kind of dropping down into the third gear, what would you say you were grateful for? Like, what are the things that were amazing about that thing? And then what have you learned from it to take you forward now?
Yeah, sure. I think from a business standpoint specifically, is in that sort of slower period of time, is I was always constantly kind of looking, because I didn't have a focus. I was looking at like different ways to deliver our product all the time because I felt like what we were doing wasn't quite the pinnacle. And so I wasn't necessarily hungry, but almost out of desperation, I suppose, was just like, it's not working or whatever, because I wasn't focused on something. So of course it was never going to work if you never focus. So what it made me do was like, look all around, like, come on, there's got to be something, there's got to be a way of doing this, which actually led me then to stumble on the idea of what we deliver now, which is the monthly subscription based thing, and everything's kind of included in that. And I don't think, so I'm very grateful. I wouldn't have, I guess, if I'd have been focused on just creating the agency that we first started and I'd had better goals, we'd still been doing that now, if that makes sense. So I feel like because we weren't nailing that bit when really we could have done, because we weren't nailing that first idea and that set, I then looked elsewhere because it's very hard sometimes to look within. So you always look outside. It must be something out there that I can get and change and bring into my life, when really it was to change me. But because I did that, like I say, I was fortunate to discover the new idea, when really I probably shouldn't have been looking for a new idea, I guess is what I'm saying, if I had been focused.
You're working on rather than working in your business, you're working on your business. And I've realized this over the years, that sometimes difficult to do both at the same time. You can do it, but when you're in that technician mode, you're working in your business, you don't get to kind of hover above it and go, as from a bird's eye view, look down and go, yeah, this is what we need to do. We need to move that part over there. We need to get rid of that, or we need to take that person to there, because you're so entrapped in your business. So maybe, I mean, we always say it's easier to line the dots up going back. So that's gratitude in terms of a business side. What about the 2 years of like third gear from a personal point of view experiences?
So obviously you touched on it before. It's like the house. So like, over the last 2 years, I think we've been in 18 months now. I've kind of, by taking my foot off the gas on Saturdays and Sundays specifically, because when you've got a focus, you don't need energy, you just always have it. So you work on Saturdays and Sundays no matter what, and you don't consider it work. But when you don't have a focus, you start to need Saturdays and Sundays. Like, it's so bizarre. Like your brain, your body starts to go and need to relax, and it's all a mental game for sure. So on those days, I've been like, anything from learning DIY to like painting, stuff like that and things. And what's almost weird and maybe a bit counterintuitive is that with little Phoenix coming along in the last, he's 8 weeks now. So the first kind of 6 weeks, I was like spending time with him. And to be fair, I was working, but not really pushing it. But it's almost like he's been the thing that has also like kicked me up the bum, which is like, right, hold on. I always said that if I was going to have a child, that I would have X, Y, and Z, like in place. And so like, you know what I mean? Like, these are things that a lot of people, I guess, think about is whatever. So because those things are not in place, the standards I want them to be, that's been like a kick up the arse as well, to be like, right, well, where are we going to be 5 years from now? Like, what is that sort of, what does that look like? So I think grateful for is the fact that I've been able to enjoy the new house, get it to a place where we want it with the right, decorations or whatever you would call it. And then, just right at the end of this period of being in third gear was when Phoenix came along, I suppose. So I was able to kind of spend time with him. I would say those are the two.
Final point, and I love it. Just asking the questions is like so cool because there's so many lessons in there. Like, I think what we want to get across is there's actually nothing wrong with being in a comfort zone. So I don't want to put out a message to our listeners that, oh, you're a loser, you're in a comfort zone, like you're just satisfied with the, being in this comfort zone. I don't think it's a part where you go, this is a bad place to be. I think it's a part where you've just got to be aware. You've just almost, and it always comes back to that question, are you happy? If the answer is yes, keep doing what you're doing. If the answer is no, then you need to change something. And that is a question to ask yourself probably every morning when you get up. Are you happy? I am with this, right? Cool. Well, keep doing what you're doing to maintain that. If the answer is no, then what do you need to change? And then the next question is, you've made the changes. Are you doing enough? Are you doing enough to create that change? Because we always say we want things, and it goes back to the turning your shoulds into musts. And I mentioned last week, and again, getting up at 7 a.m. every morning this week. I'm getting it, like, as the weeks progress now, it's just becoming automatic. I'm literally just getting up and going for it because I'm continually asking myself, am I happy? The answer is yes, but could I be? And it's not even could I be happier, because if someone said, right, that's your lot now, you can't do any more, you're stuck with this, then I'd be like, cool, all right. But I know there's more room for growth. So it's like, I am truly happy, but I know there's some more greatness out there to go and achieve, and it's fun. Like, I love building, you love building. Like, the fun element is in the building process of building a business, of building a new body, of building a new lifestyle,
learning a new language.
Yeah, learning something new, building something to your skill set, and building towards a vacation. Like, I think that goes under the radar a lot. Like, some of the best parts of actually doing cool stuff is in the planning. Like, when we've planned our trips, like what we're going to do. I remember the New York trip when we're like, right, what we'll do, we've earned the right to do this. So we'll plan a night out. So rather than get up at 4 a.m. and have to get to the airport and do all the stuff, like, we've earned the right to say, you know what, we'll meet up at Manchester Airport at 2:00 in the afternoon. We'll go in the airport lounge, we'll have a few drinks, we'll have a laugh, we'll have a proper catch up in the lounge, we'll get there nice and early, have something to eat. We'll fly down to London, and I'm just laughing because I remember when we came out of the airport at London forgetting to get our luggage. So we had to go all the way back through security. It was ridiculous. But we landed in London, and then it was like, right, we'll stay at the airport hotel in London. We stayed at Heathrow. We went out for dinner that night in around the Gatwick area. Went to a really nice gastro pub, had some great food, had a good evening that night, and then we went back to the hotel. And like, we get up in the next morning, we had an amazing breakfast in the first class lounge at Virgin, and then we got on the flight, and we planned that trip, but the planning of it was just as good as the actual experience. And then obviously your experience is better because you've planned it, and you're not getting on the plane absolutely shattered. You're totally refreshed. And the holiday actually started for us as soon as we got in the car to get to Manchester Airport.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was like a day before almost, like it. It's and also everything's about, I feel like I personally enjoy life when there is like having a plan, basically, like when there is a plan and then you achieve that plan. And you, like, say, we've always said that if, for example, we've planned that trip to New York and then the flight gets cancelled that day, and like we've got to jig things or whatever, you do that anyway. You do those things on the fly. Like, that's not an issue.
Yeah, we did it on the last day, remember?
Right, yeah. We'll tell that on another podcast. But yeah, I feel like to sort of everything's focus based. Like when you've got a focus, like for me now in the business, one of the things I'd never had before was like a bit of like a mission to sort of the company to live by. And so I defined that like a couple of weeks ago. And we were sort of doing the things that I've defined it as, right? Which is just to create this best partnership. But then what it does is it filters down into all your decisions. So when I had no focus and no sort of mission or guiding principle, then when things come up, you've got to debate them. You've got to think about, oh, should we do this or should we do that? But when you've got like a mission in place, and you can do this for your life as well, but I'm just talking about for the business specifically, we've got this mission in place. So let's say we've got this mission of creating the best partnership, and then something happens in the business, like a customer asks this or asks that or whatever. And then we're thinking, well, should we do that? Well, we think, well, does it mean that we're creating a better partnership between us and them? Yeah, it does. All right, we do it. Does it mean we're creating a better partnership between them? No, it doesn't. Right, we don't do it. So there's no kind of time wasted being distracted by different things. It's like, does it create a better partnership? And if the answer is yes, we do it. If it doesn't, we don't do it. And there's kind of no debate then. And then for me, bringing in new employees now with this kind of base, it's a lot easier for me to kind of almost delegate, because I can just, they don't have to ask everything. Should we do this? Should we do that? It's like, well, you know the mission. This is what we're trying to achieve.
They feel it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not as well like the other thing, because the reason I came up with that mission again this time around was like the whole reason why Let's One was created as an agency was that there were so many agencies out there, not to really badmouth anyone in particular, but there were so many companies out there overcharging for things like websites, social, branding, and like the things they were supplying were terrible. And so I would like get a hold of something that somebody had been given, and I'd redo it for free, send it back to the person and be like, look, there, it's better. And they're like, wow, yeah, that's better. We just spent $2,000 on that. So then I was like, hold on a minute. This is what the industry's like. I'm going to get in here and do it 10 times better. And then what happened was I got in with those intentions, started off, and then like I say, the foot came off the gas. I didn't stick to that guiding principle of what it is now, of like creating a partnership, and, you know, different things slipped. And then over time, you end up being one of the agencies you sort of detested, and the reason you came into the industry. And that's, I won't say we necessarily got that bad, but like that could have happened for sure. So it's kind of.
Have you read Start With Why by Simon Sinek?
Yeah.
Amazing. And that's what you've got back to your why, and that the mission behind, you know, what is the core statement of the company. And I think you said it then a minute ago, like that was about business, but you can have it for your life as well. Like, what is your core life mission? And most people never know what their purpose is. They go through life not knowing it. So maybe that is the point of the whole thing is, you know, what is your purpose? That will determine whether you're comfortable in your comfort zone or you're still growing and achieving things. And I always say there's a fine balance between gratitude and ambition. And if you're not, you've got to find, and you've got to stay at that sweet spot, a little bit like the 70 mile an hour in the car. You've got to stay at that sweet spot to totally live that life of happiness, in my opinion. Because if you get too grateful and your ambition drops, then you're not growing. And Tony Robbins says it, if you're not growing, you're dying. Yeah. Right? There's no fulfillment when there's no growth. But if you're growing and growing and growing, but you're not enjoying any of the stuff that you're creating, and you're not, you know, we've both been in that scenario as well. Like you've touched on it on the other weeks. Like you were growing that fast, you were driving that fast. You didn't have a chance to look out of the window at the beautiful scenery that you were passing. So I think there's a constant battle on a day-to-day basis of finding that sweet spot between gratitude and ambition. And I guarantee there'll be so many people on lockdown right now that are going through this, where because they're not growing, they feel bored. So there's no growth. So it's like, I feel bored, I feel stagnant. And then they start to have negative thoughts, and it obviously spirals into, I'm going to use something to escape. I'm going to use alcohol. I'm going to use box sets. I'm going to use drugs. I'm going to use whatever it is to escape from that boredom and that feeling of not growing. So my advice to anyone listening to this is, if you're in lockdown and you feel stifled, like create something. Ask yourself, what can I create? What can I learn? What can I do to give me a purpose for growth?
Yeah, and I think that's where it starts, is like even before you or I guess the creating is create something that's your North Star. What's the thing that you're, and there's like, is it you that recommended this to me? I haven't seen it, but it's like, there's like a documentary or a book, I can't remember which, of like, interviews with people that are essentially on their deathbed, I think. So it's like people that have got to the end of their life, like in the 90s or something like that. And it's just somebody interviewing them on like their regrets, I think. I'll have to do a little bit of research.
Yeah, there is a video. I've not read the book, but there is a video out there of it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's so interesting because the things that people regret, they could be the things that you then take inspiration from to be your purpose. Because it's like, right, well, because we always say, don't ask a window cleaner how to cut hair. So there's no use asking a 20-year-old, what do you regret? Like, well, I hadn't lived life yet to regret, you know. But if you ask a 90-year-old who's been there and done that, you're going to get better sort of feedback, better inspiration from someone who's been there and lived life, if that makes sense. That, you know, what were their regrets that you don't then want to make that sort of mistake yourself. So I think once you've got a North Star of what it is you're trying to achieve, whether it be in business or personally, then everything else becomes so much easier. Do you get up at 7 or do you get up at 10? Well, is the thing going to bring me close to the North Star or further away? If it's getting closer, then I'll do it. It's 7. You know what I mean? It's like same when it comes to health. One of the things is, well, I want to live till I'm 90. Well, is the food you're eating right now, is that going to help you live to 90 or is it not? No, it's not. All right, I won't eat it. Or yeah, it is. All right, I'll eat it. And it's like same with the gym, same with business. And like I say, I feel like in business, I've personally never had that before, because even the goals I set originally were so small time now when I think about it. At the time, I thought, oh, these are big, these are exciting. And potentially that will happen again when I take these sets of goals. I'll think, bloody hell, they were tiny goals. But for now, it's like, unless you're constantly resetting those medium goals, because like I say, the long-term goals never changed, but the route to get there, I like, I didn't pave the path in front of me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I was trying to walk and imagine a path's in front of me and I'm the one putting the bricks on the path. I can see the end, I can see the outcome, but I need to build the path in between now and then. And so you always have to be building like a meter ahead of yourself so that you can walk on that meter. And I just hadn't built that meter in front of me. So I got to the end of my original goals, my original path, and then I was lost. Like I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have a direction.
Of interest, were your, you know, when you'd say you would drop down to third gear, did you have your goals plastered all over your bedroom wall?
No, nothing. Yeah. What, barely looked at them. And like,
well, that's another key point, I guess.
Yeah.
Because maybe that would have reminded you, but when you're not aware of it, it's like, well, I've not written my goals down. And I say to our guys all the time, you know, you're telling me that you're struggling in your business, but show me a picture of your bedroom wall. Show me a mirror in your bathroom. Have you got your big thick red lipstick and written your goals on there, or is there nothing on there? And I've seen people who I know personally tell me their goals and what they want. And then I've gone, show me your screensaver. And there's a picture of their toenails on there, or a picture of their dog, or a picture of their, not their cut toenails.
Clip of toenails just in a pile.
Chopped toenails on it. Yeah. No, I mean a picture of their like sand in the feet. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Is that going to remind you to stay focused and hungry? Is a picture of your Jack Russell on your screensaver really going to get you out of bed in the morning to be really, really focused? I mean, my goals on my phone, my thing, it's been on there as a target that I've had for 4 years really. And it's still on there. Now, when in the times when I've been in third gear, it's still been on there, but maybe I've not made a conscious effort to stare at it every single day.
But also you might need to switch it up, like as in, you know, if you've got certain goals, make it look different. Because that's one of the things that you're absolutely right. I hadn't even thought about that until now, but since 2 weeks ago, I made a list of business goals, list of personal goals, like that really mattered to me and I gave a crap about, because I'd put goals on the list before that I felt like were the right things to have as goals, but really they didn't resonate with me. They didn't get me excited. So I've scrapped all that, got 2 one-sided pieces of paper for each one for business, one for personal. And every morning after I've meditated, that's what I then read. So then it's a case of like, because once you've meditated, you know, and again, I think so highly of it, I think it's so good to do that, is once you've done that, you're in the best mental state. So if then you fill your brain with your goals at that point, it's like you absorb them like so much. So then what happens is this is the order how I do things in the day now is like wake up, obviously have like, vitamin tablets, apple cider vinegar, etc. But I sit down, meditate, which obviously opens up my mind and helps me relax, etc., etc. Then I look at my goals of what I want in life and what I want for the business in life. And then I look at what are the tasks that are important this month. So it's like, I'm doing it in that order, which is like get my mind right, then look at the goals I want to achieve longer term, then look at what I want to achieve this month, then what I want to achieve in the day. So that then this is before, like we've spoken about before opening email, before looking at my phone, before doing any of that, I've looked at what I want, if that makes sense. And so then if the goals for the month don't relate to the goals like that are longer term, then the goals for the month aren't right. And then it's the same for the goals for the day. If they don't relate to what I want to achieve this month, then the goals for the day aren't right, the tasks of the day. And so I just filter it down like that. And then, you're sort of seeing them every single day, and you know that you're on the right path to what it is you want to achieve, because you've not started with the goal. What do I have to do today? You've not started that. You've gone, what am I trying to achieve? What's the ultimate thing I'm trying to do? That's what you started. And then you've gone, okay, well, what do I need to do this month to achieve that? Well, I've got to do these 4 or 5 things. All right, well, what have I got to do today that means that I'll achieve those things this month? And that's kind of like my process. And I'm ready for the day and ready for it to attack me. Because then if an email comes in and it doesn't relate to what I've got on my list for today, then it gets passed on. I delegate it or whatever, because I'm trying to achieve these things. And what I've done in the last 3 years is I've let other people dictate my time. So if an email came in or this, that, and the other, whatever it might have been, I've put my focus on that instead of what I'm actually trying to achieve. So going back to, if you don't have a focus or a North Star, you just float. Hey, it's Outwitting the Devil, right? I finally read that book now. That's exactly the main fundamental is you become a drifter if you haven't got things to focus on. And that's basically what's happened to me. The things that I was not outwitting, the distractions were new house, alcohol, not having focused routines, not having an ultimate goal. These are all the distractions that I had. And so, of course, the progression wasn't there because I was drifting. Very good book as well, that. So thanks for the recommendation there.
No worries. So I've just had a look, and we are drifting to 79 subscribed. So we're on 78 at the minute. So we don't want to be drifting. We want to be flying. So guys, if you are listening to this, subscribe, share it with your friends, family, anyone you think you're going to get value and you're going to help somebody with. And good luck on another amazing week. Thank you so much for checking this out. And Mark, thanks for your honesty. I think it's cool that, when we do these things, that we're both open and honest about what we are.
Yeah.
We ain't claiming to be experts on anything. We're just sharing our journeys, our lessons, our mistakes, and hopefully help you guys along the way with your journey. So stay positive, stay focused, and check with you next week.
See ya.
The Extra 10% Podcast. Remember to like the John and Mark Facebook page on Facebook, or visit johnandmark.co.uk for exclusive updates and content. Why not share this podcast with a friend and help them get paid tomorrow for what they do today?